Arjun Malhotra had always been the kind of man who had everything figured out. At 34 years old, he was a successful corporate lawyer in Mumbai. The kind of person everyone respected, but nobody really knew. His colleagues would describe him as brilliant, focused, maybe a bit cold. He never missed deadlines, never lost his temper, and definitely never let emotions cloud his judgment. His life ran like a well-oiled machine, everything in its place, everything under control. He lived alone in a spacious apartment in Bandra. The place was clean, organized, almost too perfect. There were no family photos on the walls, no clutter on the kitchen counter, just sleek furniture and law books neatly arranged on shelves. His friends used to joke that his apartment looked like a hotel room, like nobody actually lived there. But that's exactly how Arjun liked it. Simple, uncomplicated, safe. Over the years, Arjun had watched his friends and colleagues fall in love, get their hearts broken, make foolish decisions, all in the name of romance. He'd seen grown men cry over breakups in the office bathroom. He'd watched brilliant lawyers lose focus on important cases because they were distracted by relationship problems. He'd attended enough weddings that ended in messy divorces to know that love was just another word for losing control. And Arjun Malhotra never lost control. His own parents had divorced when he was 16. He still remembered the shouting matches, the thrown plates, the way his mother cried for months. He remembered his father moving out and starting a new family, barely keeping in touch. Young Arjun had promised himself then that he would never let anyone have that kind of power over him. He built walls around his heart, brick by brick, year after year. By the time he finished law school, those walls were so high and thick that nothing could get through. Or so he thought. It was a regular Tuesday morning when Priya Sharma walked into the law firm. She was the new junior associate, fresh out of law school with bright eyes and an infectious smile. The senior partners introduced her during the morning meeting, and Arjun barely looked up from his files. New associates came and went all the time. He had no reason to pay special attention to this one. But Priya was different, though Arjun didn't realize it at first. During her first week, there was a case discussion where everyone was debating strategy. Arjun laid out his approach, confident and direct as always. Then Priya, this brand new associate who should have been intimidated, gently raised her hand and offered a different perspective. She wasn't aggressive about it, didn't try to show off. She just smiled and said, "What if we looked at it this way instead?" And her idea was actually good. Really good. Arjun found himself impressed, which didn't happen often. He nodded slightly and said they'd consider her approach. The other lawyers looked surprised. Arjun never changed his mind in meetings. Over the next few weeks, he started noticing small things about Priya. How she stayed late to help other junior associates with their research. How she remembered everyone's coffee orders. How she asked the office cleaner about his daughter's college admission. She had this warmth about her, this genuine interest in people that seemed so foreign to Arjun's world of deadlines and billable hours. One evening, Arjun was working late on a complex merger case. The office was empty except for the cleaning staff. Or, so he thought. Around 9 p.m., he went to the pantry to make coffee and found Priya there, also making tea. She looked tired but smiled when she saw him. "Still here?" she asked. "Could ask you the same thing," Arjun replied. "Big case tomorrow. I want to be prepared." She poured her tea and turned to leave, then paused. "Mr. Malhotra, can I ask you something?" "Go ahead. Why did you become a lawyer? I mean, what made you choose this?" The question caught him off guard. Nobody asked him things like that. They asked about case strategies, about legal precedents, about career advice. But why he became a lawyer? He hadn't thought about that in years. Security, he found himself saying. Control. A way to build a stable life. Priya tilted her head, studying him with those thoughtful eyes. "That's interesting. I became a lawyer because my father always said the law should protect the weak, and I wanted to be part of that. But your reason makes sense too." She said goodnight and left, leaving Arjun standing there with his coffee, feeling oddly unsettled. That brief conversation stayed with him for days. There was something about the way she looked at the world, so different from his own cynical view, that intrigued him. The following week, during another late evening, Arjun found himself taking a coffee break at the same time Priya usually made her tea. It became a pattern, these small interactions, just 5 or 10 minutes. But slowly Arjun started looking forward to them. She'd tell him funny stories about her childhood in Pune, about her parents who ran a small bookshop. He'd listen, rarely sharing much himself, but something about her voice made the empty office feel less lonely. One night, Priya was laughing about something her nephew had done, and Arjun caught himself smiling. Actually smiling. When was the last time he'd done that at work? When she left, he sat alone in the pantry, his coffee growing cold, and felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. It felt like fear. Because for the first time in 17 years, someone was getting past his defenses, and he had no idea how to stop it. The next few months changed everything for Arjun, though he fought it every step of the way. He found himself doing things that made no sense. Things the old Arjun would have called foolish, like volunteering to review Priya's case briefs when any senior associate could do it, like asking her opinion on strategies he'd already decided on, just to hear her thoughts, like finding excuses to assign her to cases he was handling. His mentor, Rajesh Uncle, who'd been with the firm for 30 years, noticed first. One afternoon, he walked into Arjun's office and closed the door. "What's going on with you?" Rajesh asked, settling into the chair across from Arjun's desk. "What do you mean? You're different. You smiled at a client last week. You, the man who treats meetings like military operations, actually smiled." "I wanted." Arjun tried to brush it off. "Maybe I'm just in a good mood." Rajesh laughed. "In 20 years, I've never seen you in a good mood. This is about that new associate, isn't it, Priya?" The way Arjun's jaw tightened gave him away. Rajesh leaned forward, his expression turning serious but kind. "Listen, there's nothing wrong with caring about someone. You've been alone too long, Beta. Your parents' divorce, it wasn't your fault. You don't have to punish yourself forever." After Rajesh left, Arjun sat in his office for a long time, staring at nothing. His mentor was right. He'd been running from connection for so long that he'd forgotten what it felt like to actually want someone in his life. And now Priya had somehow slipped past all his defenses without even trying. The thing that scared him most was how easy it had been. She hadn't pushed, hadn't demanded anything. She was just herself. Kind and genuine and somehow interested in him despite his cold exterior. She asked him questions nobody else bothered with. How he spent his weekends. What books he read, whether he missed his family. At first, Arjun had given short, careful answers. But slowly, over cups of tea and coffee in the empty office pantry, he started opening up. He told her about his love for old Hindi movies, something he'd never admitted to anyone at the firm. He mentioned how he volunteered at a legal aid clinic on Saturdays, helping people who couldn't afford lawyers. He even talked about his mother, how they spoke once a month but the conversations were always stiff and uncomfortable. Priya never judged, never offered unwanted advice. She just listened with those warm eyes and said things like, "That must have been hard," or, "I'm glad you do that volunteer work. Your father would be proud if he knew." Simple words, but they touched something deep inside him that had been frozen for years. One Friday evening, the firm was celebrating winning a major case. There was champagne in the conference room, partners slapping each other on the back, associates networking aggressively. Arjun stood near the window, nursing a glass of sparkling water, watching it all with his usual detachment. Then Priya walked in, wearing a simple blue kurta, her hair pulled back. She saw him standing alone and walked over. "Not enjoying the party?" she asked. "Not really my scene." "Mine neither, honestly. Too loud." She stood next to him, looking out the window at the Mumbai skyline. "You know what I miss? The quiet of Pune. Here, even at midnight, there's noise." "You could always go back," Arjun said. "I could. But then I'd miss working with brilliant lawyers who challenge me to think differently." She glanced at him with a small smile. "Like you." Something in her tone made his heart race. Was she just being professional? Or was there something more in those words? Arjun had argued cases in front of high court judges without breaking a sweat. But right now, standing next to this woman in a crowded conference room, he felt completely out of his depth. Priya. He started, then stopped. What was he going to say? That she'd become the best part of his day? That he looked forward to their evening conversations more than anything else in his life? That he was terrified because she made him feel things he'd sworn never to feel again? Yes. She turned to face him fully. And in that moment, the party noise faded away. It was just the two of them. And something unspoken hung in the air between them. Arjun struggled for words. Something that never happened to him. I enjoy our conversations. More than I probably should. Priya's smile widened. I enjoy them too. You're not as scary as everyone thinks, you know. You're actually quite kind when you let people see it. Before Arjun could respond, one of the senior partners called Priya over to introduce her to a client. She excused herself, leaving Arjun standing there, his carefully controlled world tilting on its axis. That night, lying in his perfectly organized apartment, Arjun couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling and admitted the truth he'd been avoiding for months. He was falling for her. No, he'd already fallen. Priya had become his weakness, the crack in his armor, the one person who could hurt him if she wanted to, and the most terrifying part? He didn't want to stop feeling this way. For the first time in 17 years, Arjun Malhotra was choosing to be vulnerable, and it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, exhilarating and terrifying all at once. The weeks after the party were torture for Arjun. He couldn't focus on cases the way he used to. During client meetings, his mind would wander to something funny Priya had said the day before. While reviewing contracts, he'd catch himself checking the time, counting down hours until their evening coffee breaks. His secretary noticed he was distracted. His colleagues noticed he was leaving work earlier. Everyone noticed, it seemed, except Priya herself. Or maybe she did notice and was waiting for him to make a move. That possibility both thrilled and terrified him. What if he told her how he felt, and she didn't feel the same way? What if he ruined the easy friendship they'd built? What if he opened his heart and got hurt the way he'd sworn never to be hurt again? One Tuesday evening, Arjun made a decision. He rehearsed what he'd say 100 times in his head. He'd be direct, honest, professional. He'd tell her he had feelings for her and ask if she'd like to have dinner sometime, not as colleagues but as something more, simple, clear. The way he approached everything in life. But when he went to find her, Priya wasn't at her desk. Her neighbors said she'd gone home early. Something about not feeling well. Arjun felt a strange pang of worry. Priya never left early. She was always the last one in the office besides him. He tried to focus on work but couldn't. Finally, around 8 p.m., he did something completely unlike him. He sent her a text message. Hope you're feeling better. Let me know if you need anything. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then appeared again. Finally, her response came. Thank you. Just a headache. I'll be fine by tomorrow. But the next day, Priya didn't come to work. Or the day after that. By Thursday, Arjun was genuinely worried. He asked HR if everything was okay, trying to sound casual. They said she'd called in sick and would be back next week. That weekend felt endless. Arjun tried to distract himself with work, with his volunteer legal clinic, with anything. But his mind kept returning to Priya. Was she really sick? Had something happened to her family? Had he done something to make her uncomfortable? Monday morning, Arjun arrived at the office earlier than usual. He kept glancing at the door, waiting for Priya to walk in. 9 o'clock passed. 10 o'clock. At 11, he finally saw her entering the office. But something was different. Her usual brightness was dimmed. She looked tired, and when she smiled at people greeting her, it didn't reach her eyes. Arjun waited until lunch break, then went to her desk. Can we talk? Maybe grab lunch? Priya looked up, surprised. Mr. Malhotra, I have a lot of catch-up work. Please. Just 30 minutes. Something in his voice must have convinced her because she nodded and grabbed her bag. They went to a quiet cafe nearby. One of those places with books on shelves and soft music playing. They ordered food and sat across from each other, an awkward silence stretching between them. Are you okay? Arjun finally asked. You seem different. You seem different. Priya looked down at her plate. I'm fine. Just had a difficult week. Priya, look at me. When she did, he saw something in her eyes that made his chest hurt. Sadness, maybe. Or disappointment. Please tell me what's wrong. If I did something to upset you, I need to know. She shook her head. You didn't do anything wrong. That's the problem. I don't understand. Priya took a deep breath. Can I be honest with you? Really honest? Always. I've been working at the firm for 6 months now. And in that time, I've gotten to know you. The real you behind the serious lawyer facade. The you who watches old movies and helps people for free on weekends. The you who remembers that I like my tea with extra ginger. The you who actually listens when people talk instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. She paused, her hands trembling slightly. And somewhere along the way, I developed feelings for you. Real feelings. But you're so closed off, so determined to keep everyone at a distance, and I can't keep hoping for something that's never going to happen. So last week, I decided I need to create some professional distance. It's the smart thing to do. Arjun felt like the ground had shifted beneath him. She had feelings for him? All this time he'd been agonizing over how to tell her. She'd been feeling the same way? And now she was pulling away because she thought he didn't care? Priya, he said, his voice rougher than usual. You're wrong. About what? About me not feeling anything. You're completely wrong. He ran a hand through his hair. A gesture so unlike his usual composed self. I've been trying to find the courage to tell you for weeks now. You scare me. Do you know that? You absolutely terrify me because you make me feel things I promised myself I'd never feel again. Priya's eyes widened. What are you saying? I'm saying that you're the first person in 17 years who's made me want to tear down the walls I've built. I'm saying that I look forward to seeing you every single day. I'm saying that you've become my weakness. And instead of fighting it, I've realized I don't want to. I want to be weak for you. I want to care about you. Even though it scares me senseless. He reached across the table and took her hand. His heart pounding. I'm saying I'm falling for you, Priya. Actually, I think I've already fallen. And if you'll give me a chance, I'd like to take you to dinner. A real dinner. Not as colleagues, but as two people who maybe, possibly, could build something real together. Tears filled Priya's eyes, but she was smiling. You have no idea how long I've waited to hear you say something like that. So is that a yes? That's definitely a yes. They sat there, hands clasped across the table, both of them grinning like teenagers. Arjun felt lighter than he had in years, as if a weight he'd been carrying since he was 16 had finally been lifted. He was still scared. Being vulnerable still felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. But for the first time, he was willing to take that leap, because some things were worth the risk. And Priya was definitely worth it. The first few months of their relationship were like nothing Arjun had ever experienced. He'd assumed dating would be similar to everything else in his life, something he could approach logically, with clear rules and expectations. He was completely wrong. Priya challenged him in ways no courtroom opponent ever had. She pushed him to be spontaneous, to let go of control, to actually live instead of just existing. One Saturday, instead of his usual routine of gym, volunteer clinic, and paperwork, she dragged him to a street food festival in Juhu. Arjun, who typically ate calculated meals for optimal nutrition, found himself trying pav bhaji from different vendors, arguing about which one made it better. He couldn't remember the last time he'd had so much fun doing something so simple. She introduced him to her family over a video call. Her father, who ran that bookshop in Pune, grilled Arjun about his intentions. Her mother fussed about whether he was eating properly. Her nephew made him promise to play cricket next time he visited. It was chaotic and warm, and completely overwhelming for someone who'd spent holidays alone for years. After the call ended, Arjun sat quietly on Priya's couch, and she asked if he was okay. "Your family is nice," he said. "But—" She could always tell when he was holding something back. "But I don't know if I know how to be part of something like that. I've been alone for so long, Priya. What if I'm too damaged to be what you need?" She took his face in her hands. "You're not damaged. You're just hurt. There's a difference. And you don't have to be anything except yourself. That's all I've ever wanted." His colleagues at the firm noticed the change in him. The ice had thawed. Arjun started joining team lunches. He smiled at clients. He even made a joke during a partner meeting that actually landed. Rajesh uncle pulled him aside one day and said, "That Priya, she's good for you. Don't let her go." But relationships weren't just the easy moments, Arjun discovered. They were also about facing the hard things together. 6 months into their relationship, Priya's mother had a minor heart attack. Priya got the call during a work meeting and went pale. Arjun immediately cleared both their schedules and drove her to Pune, a 3-hour drive he made in 2.5. At the hospital, watching Priya cry in the waiting room, Arjun felt completely helpless. He couldn't argue this problem away, couldn't research a solution, couldn't control the outcome. All he could do was hold her hand and be present. Her father, exhausted and scared, looked at him with grateful eyes and said, "Thank you for bringing our daughter home." They stayed in Pune for a week. Priya's mother recovered well. But during those days, Arjun saw a different side of relationships. The real side. Not the romantic dinners and fun weekends. He saw the fear, the uncertainty, the way love meant your heart lived outside your body, in the people you cared about. It was terrifying. One night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Arjun sat alone in Priya's childhood home, looking at family photos on the walls. Priya found him there, still unable to sleep. "What are you thinking?" she asked, sitting beside him. "I'm thinking about how much power you have over me now," he admitted. "When your mother was in surgery, I felt like I couldn't breathe. That's never happened to me before. I've always been able to stay calm, stay logical, but today, I was falling apart inside. And that scares you? It terrifies me. Because I've spent my whole adult life avoiding exactly this feeling. But here's the thing, Priya. Even with how scared I am, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't go back to being that cold, disconnected person I was before you. That version of me was safe, but he was also half alive." Priya leaned her head on his shoulder. "You know what my father told me today? He said he could see how much you care for me. That it's written all over your face when you look at me. He said any man who drives like a maniac to get his daughter to her mother's hospital bed is someone worth keeping." Arjun laughed softly. "I did speed a bit." "A bit? You broke every traffic law in Maharashtra." They sat there in comfortable silence, and Arjun realized something profound. Being weak for someone didn't mean being powerless. It meant being brave enough to let someone matter. To let their pain become your pain. Their joy become your joy. It meant choosing connection over safety. The next morning, Priya's mother was moved out of ICU. She held Arjun's hand and said, "Take care of my daughter. She's stubborn like her father, but she has a soft heart. She needs someone strong enough to be gentle." "I'm learning how," Arjun promised. And he meant it. The drive back to Mumbai was different from the panicked drive there. They talked about the future, about what they both wanted from life. Priya admitted she'd always dreamed of starting a free legal clinic for women. Arjun, surprising himself, said he'd been thinking about the same thing, combining their skills to help people who really needed it. "We could be partners in more ways than one," Priya said with a smile. "I'd like that," Arjun replied, reaching for her hand. "I'd like that a lot." He was still learning how to be vulnerable, still fighting old instincts to close off when things got hard. But with Priya beside him, Arjun was discovering that his greatest weakness was also his greatest strength. Loving her made him better, braver, more fully human. And he was grateful every single day for being weak enough to let her in. 2 years passed like pages in a beautiful book. Arjun and Priya moved in together. A decision that both excited and challenged Arjun. Sharing space meant sharing everything. His morning grumpiness, his obsessive need for organization, his occasional nightmares about his parents' divorce. But it also meant waking up to her smile, cooking dinner together while arguing about which spices to add, falling asleep with her hand in his. They opened their legal clinic, a small office in Dadar that offered free consultation 3 days a week. Watching Priya help a domestic violence survivor file for protection, or seeing her explain legal rights to a widow being cheated out of her inheritance, Arjun felt something shift in him. His career had always been about winning, about status, and billable hours. But this work, helping real people, with real problems, filled a space in his heart he didn't know was empty. His relationship with his own mother slowly improved. Priya encouraged him to call more often, to visit. The conversations were still awkward sometimes, but they were trying. His mother even admitted one day that she was happy to see him finally opening up to life. "I worried about you," she said during one visit. "You became so closed off after the divorce. I blamed myself." "It wasn't your fault, Ma," Arjun said, words he'd needed to say for years. "I was angry, and I took it out on the wrong things. On connection itself, instead of just that one broken connection. This girl, Priya, she's changed you. When are you going to marry her?" Arjun had been thinking about that question a lot lately. In his typical fashion, he'd researched rings, planned the perfect moment, drafted and redrafted what he'd say. But every plan felt too calculated, too controlled. Priya deserved something real, something from the heart. The moment came unexpectedly, as the best moments often do. They'd taken a weekend trip to Goa, staying at a quiet beach resort, away from the touristy areas. It was early evening, the sun painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. They were walking along the beach, barefoot in the sand, when Priya stopped to watch the sunset. "This is perfect," she said softly. "This moment. Right here." Arjun looked at her, really looked at her. The golden light catching her hair, the peaceful smile on her face, the way she found joy in simple things. And suddenly all his careful plans didn't matter. What mattered was telling her the truth, raw and unpolished. "Priya," he said, and something in his voice made her turn to face him. He took both her hands in his, and words started flowing that he hadn't planned. "Before I met you, I thought I had everything figured out. I thought strength meant standing alone, never needing anyone, never letting anyone in. I built walls so high that I couldn't even see the sky anymore. And I told myself I was fine that way." "Arjun, what are you doing?" she asked, but her eyes were already filling with tears. "I'm telling you that you destroyed those walls. You didn't climb over them or break them down. You just stood on the other side and made me want to tear them down myself. You made me realize that being vulnerable isn't weakness. It's courage. Loving you, being weak for you, letting you see all my broken parts. That's been the bravest thing I've ever done." He pulled out the ring he'd been carrying for 2 weeks, waiting for the perfect moment, and dropped to one knee right there on the beach. "I'm still scared sometimes. I'm scared of losing you. Scared of not being enough. Scared of all the ways life can hurt us. But I'm more scared of living without you. So I'm asking, will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life being beautifully, hopelessly weak for you?" Priya was crying now, happy tears streaming down her face. "You crazy man, of course I'll marry you. I've been waiting for you to ask." "Really? How long?" "Since that first lunch, when you finally admitted you had feelings for me. I knew then that you were it for me." They kissed as the sun set over the Arabian Sea, and Arjun felt a completeness he'd never imagined possible. This was what he'd been running from all those years. Not pain, but this overwhelming joy that came from letting someone truly matter. The wedding was small but perfect, a mix of both their worlds. Arjun's law firm colleagues mixed with Priya's bookshop family. His mother cried during the ceremony, telling anyone who'd listen how proud she was. Rajesh uncle gave a speech about watching Arjun transform from an ice statue into a human being. But it was Arjun's speech at the reception that no one would forget. He stood up, looking nervous in a way no one had ever seen him, and began to speak. "Everyone told me not to fall in love," he said, his voice carrying across the silent room. "They said don't let anyone become your weakness. Stay focused. Stay strong. Stay in control." And I listened to that advice for years. I thought I was being smart, protecting myself, but I was just hiding. I was so busy building armor that I forgot to live. He turned to Priya, who was watching him with those warm, loving eyes. "Then you walked into my life and changed everything. You didn't just become my weakness. You became my reason, my purpose, the thing that makes every day worth living. Yes. Loving you makes me vulnerable. It means I have something precious to lose. It means my heart lives outside my body now. In you. And that's terrifying." The room was completely silent, everyone leaning forward to hear his words. "But here's what I've learned. The things we love most will always be our greatest vulnerabilities. Our families, our dreams, the people we choose to let close. We can either run from that and live safe, small lives, or we can embrace it and live fully. I spent years running, and I was miserable, even though I convinced myself I was fine. Priya showed me that real strength isn't about standing alone. It's about being brave enough to stand with someone. To say, you matter to me, and mean it completely. She taught me that being weak for someone you love isn't actually weakness at all. It's the most powerful thing a person can do." He raised his glass, looking around at all the people who'd come to celebrate with them. "So, I'm grateful today. Grateful for this woman who saw through my walls. Grateful for being weak enough to let her in. Grateful for every moment of vulnerability. Because in those moments, I found my greatest strength. Here's to being beautifully, hopelessly, wonderfully weak for the people we love." As everyone cheered and clinked glasses, Arjun pulled Priya close for their first dance as husband and wife. She whispered in his ear, "You know you just made everyone cry, right?" "Good," he whispered back. "Let them see what they're missing by playing it safe." They danced slowly, surrounded by loved ones. And Arjun thought about the scared, lonely man he used to be. That version of him could never have imagined this moment, this happiness, this peace. But that version of him had also never taken a real risk, never opened his heart, never let himself be weak for anyone. "What are you thinking?" Priya asked, sensing his thoughtful mood. "I'm thinking that you're still my greatest weakness. And I'm thinking I plan to spend the rest of my life being weak for you, every single day. Promise?" "Promise." And he meant it with everything in him. Because Arjun Malhotra had finally learned the most important lesson of his life. Love wasn't about control or safety, or protecting yourself from pain. It was about finding someone worth being vulnerable for, someone worth the risk, someone who made weakness feel like the strongest thing in the world. He'd found that someone, and he was never letting her go.